Welcome to the Nightmare Zoo. Please like and subscribe today.
Viewer discretion is advised.
I inherited a cabin in the Appalachia Mountains. My grandpa left a list of rules. The letter from the lawyer arrived on a Tuesday, typed on crisp, expensive paper that felt alien in my cramped, city-dusted apartment. My grandfather, Elias Blackwood, was dead. A heart attack, they said, quiet and swift. He'd left me everything. The word everything turned out to be a deed to a patch of land so deep in the West Virginia Appalachians that the GPS satellites gave up sighing, a one-room cabin built from stubborn oak and desperation, and a single handwritten note. I hadn't seen Grandpa Elias since I was 12. My parents had a falling out with him, the kind sealed with silence and never spoken of again. My memories were fragments. The smell of pipe smoke and pine sap, a calloused hand on my shoulder, and a warning in his low, gravelly voice. The woods ain't just trees, boy. They're walls, and things live in the walls. I'd always thought it was just a scary story. The cabin was exactly as I'd pictured it, yet infinitely more isolated. The journey in was a trial at self-hours, on a winding highway, then onto a gravel road that deteriorated into little more than a deer path. I parked my city-sensible sedan, where the path became impassable, and hiked the last 2 miles, the silence pressing in on me like a physical weight. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was a watchful one. The cabin squatted in a small clearing, hunched against the encroaching forest. The key was under a mossy rock, right where the lawyer said it would be. The air inside was cold and still, smelling of old ash, cured meat, and something else. Something faintly metallic, like old blood. On the rough-hewn table in the center of the single room, weighed down by a river stone, was the note. It was written on yellowed paper in my grandfather's unmistakable, shaky script. The heading read, "For whoever stays the night. Read this, live by this." My eyes scanned down the list, and a cold dread, entirely separate from the mountain chill, began to seep into my bones. Rule 1. Arrive before 3 p.m. Leave the door unlocked until sundown. They need to know it's a guest, not an intruder. Rule 2. Upon entering, you must present yourself. Say clearly, "I am blood of Elias. I seek shelter for the night." They are listening? Rule 3. In the icebox beneath the floorboards, you will find a package of meat. It is not for you. At exactly 6:47 p.m., take the meat to the black stone at the edge of the clearing. Place it on the stone. Whistle these 3 notes. Then walk away. Do not look back. Rule 4. Once the meat is offered, you have a bargain. It will last until first light. Do not violate the terms. Rule 5. Bar the door at sundown. Use the oak beam. The windows are already sealed from the outside. Do not unseal them. Rule 6. No matter what you hear outside, crying, singing, knocking, screaming, do not open the door. Do not answer. It is not human. Rule 7. The fire must burn all night. If it dies, you die. The woodpile is behind the cabin. It is enough for one night. Rule 8. Do not look out the windows. They do not like to be seen. Rule 9. If you hear something on the roof, remain perfectly silent. Do not move. It is testing. It will leave. Rule 10. If you break a rule, there is no hope. Blow out the lamp. Lie on the floor in the center of the room. Close your eyes. Do not open them again. I laughed. It was a nervous, brittle sound that died quickly in the suffocating silence. Grandpa's grim sense of humor. A final test for the city grandson. Right. A quick check confirmed the absurd details. The heavy oak beam leaned by the door. The windows were indeed nailed shut from the outside. Planks of weathered wood crossed over them. And prying up a floorboard near the cold fireplace revealed an old military-style icebox. Inside, Wrapped in waxed paper was a large, raw, and bloody cut of meat. It smelled fresh. The reality of it began to curdle my amusement into anxiety. Why go to such lengths for a prank? The sun was already dipping below the ridge, painting the clearing in long, distorted shadows. 4:30 p.m. Rule 1 was already broken. A prank, I insisted to myself. Just a prank. But I barred the door, just in case. As 6:47 approached, a deep, primal part of me, the part that still feared the dark, insisted I play along. I found the black stone, a flat, obsidian-like slab that felt unnaturally cold. I placed the meat on it. The silence was absolute. I whistled the 3 notes my grandfather had scribbled, a low, high, low sequence that sounded like a sad, forgotten bird call. The moment the last note faded, the forest went dead silent. No crickets, no wind, nothing. The air grew heavy. I walked back to the cabin, my skin crawling. I didn't look back. I couldn't have even if I'd wanted to. Every instinct screamed at me not to. I slammed the door shut and dropped the heavy oak bar into place, just as the last sliver of sun vanished. Darkness fell not like a curtain, but like a shroud. For an hour, nothing. I huddled by the fire, its crackle the only sound. Then the first noise came. It was a soft, wet sobbing just outside the door. It sounded like a child, lost and terrified. "Please," a tiny voice whimpered. "I'm cold. Let me in." My hand twitched toward the bar. It sounded so real. But I remembered Rule 6. It is not human. The crying stopped abruptly. It was replaced by a sound like dry branches scraping against the roof. Rule 9. Remain silent. Do not move. I froze, barely breathing. The scraping moved from one end of the cabin to the other, then stopped directly overhead. Something heavy shifted its weight. A shower of dust and ancient moss fell from the rafters onto my head. I clenched my jaw shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. After an eternity of silence, it moved on. Then the knocking started. Not a random tapping, but a pattern. Shave and a haircut. 2 bits. My father used to knock like that on my door. A memory, warm and safe. This knock was wrong. The rhythm was off, the spaces between the knocks just a fraction too long, as if the thing outside was remembering something it had heard long ago. "Come on, son," a voice called. It was my father's voice, but fractured, like a bad recording. "Open up. It's miserable out here." Tears welled in my eyes. It was perfect. It was him. But it wasn't. Beneath the words was a faint, guttural clicking, like an insect's mandibles working. I stuffed my fist in my mouth to keep from screaming. The impersonation broke off into a gurgling snarl of frustration. Then came the screaming. It was a horrific symphony of every awful sound I could imagine. The shriek of tearing metal, the bellow of a dying animal, and woven through it all, the unmistakable sound of human agony. It was meant to break me. It almost did. I tended the fire, my hands shaking. The night was an endless parade of horrors. Whispers that promised terrible things. Sounds of something massive circling the cabin, scratching at the logs. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sounds were inside my head now. Then, a new sound. A low, rhythmic thumping against the door. Not a knock. A push. The solid oak door shuddered in its frame. The bar, thick as my thigh, groaned. They were testing the bargain. Thump, thump, thump. Something was trying to get in. I backed into the center of the room, my eyes fixed on the trembling door. The fire was burning low. I scrambled to add another log, my movements frantic. The thumping stopped. Silence. A different sound then. A sniffing. A loud, wet, snuffling at the gap under the door. It was taking in my scent. Then a voice spoke. It was a hollow, ancient whisper, a voice made of dead leaves and grave dirt. It was the most terrifying sound of all, because it held no malice. It was simply hungry. The meat was old, it whispered. The words slithered under the door, coiling around me. The bargain is weak. Blood of Elias is thin. We are still hungry. I had broken rule 1. I had arrived late. The offering was insufficient. The scratching started again, but this time it was focused. I heard a splintering crack from one of the sealed windows. A long taloned finger, gray and jointed all wrong, slid through a fresh gap in the boards and began to pry them apart. I was out of time. The rules had failed. Rule 10 was my only option. With a trembling hand, I blew out the oil lamp, plunging the room into near darkness, lit only by the dying embers of the fire. I lay down on the cold, hard floor in the center of the room and squeezed my eyes shut. The sounds of breaking wood filled the cabin. The window gave way. Then the door. I felt a cold wind blow through the room, smelling of damp soil and rancid meat. I heard them moving around me, low, shuffling steps. The click of hard things on the floorboards. Panting, breathless breaths. Something leaned close to me. I felt its presence, a freezing cold radiating from it. I felt a strand of coarse, greasy hair brush my cheek. Do not open them. The command was a prayer in my mind. I felt a sharp, piercing pain in my leg as something bit me, taking a small, testing piece. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. The thing above me made a low, chittering sound. It was communicating. The pressure receded. I heard them moving around the cabin. They were rifling through my pack. I heard the sound of my canned beans being crunched, metal and all. They were looking for more. After what felt like hours, the activity ceased. The cold air began to warm. The first gray light of dawn filtered through my closed eyelids. I dared to open my eyes. The cabin was a wreck. The door was off its hinges. The window was a gaping hole. But they were gone. I sat up, wincing at the pain in my leg. The bite was clean, deep. I would need stitches, but I was alive. As the sun rose, spilling light onto the devastation, I saw something new on the table. Next to my grandfather's list was another piece of paper, same kind, same shaky script, but I hadn't seen it before. With a dread that turned my blood to ice, I picked it up. Rule 11. You have been tasted. You are known. The bargain must be renewed. The meat in the icebox is no longer sufficient. The next offering must be fresh. My eyes drifted to the icebox. The lid was pried open. It was empty, and then I heard it. Faint, but unmistakable. The sound of an engine. A car struggling up the distant gravel road. Another hiker. A lost hunter, someone. The list fell from my numb fingers. I looked from the empty icebox to the sound of the approaching car, and I understood my grandfather's life, his isolation, and the terrible, unspoken truth of his inheritance. The bargain had to be renewed, and I was the only one left to feed them.